Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So we've seen a lot of crazy things throughout this Strixhaven C21 spoiler season extravaganza thingy. In fact, earlier this morning, the Silver Quill deck was revealed, and we saw that we have now a mono-white mass ramp spell. So if you want to hear my take about that card and all the other new ones in that deck, make sure you check that episode out. And if you haven't seen my earliest episode today on Ruxa Patient Professor, make sure you check that one out as well. Rux is a bear that's not a bear that likes bears and only eats vanilla ice cream. And in order for that statement to make sense, go watch the episode. But the craziest thing that we've seen in this entire spoiler season might just be the power level on Esix Fractal Bloom. Now, what exactly makes this commander so powerful? Well, let's jump into it to find out. So, Esix Fractal Bloom is a 4/4 flying fractal that costs 4 green blue. And to be honest, I never thought we'd see a fractal commander, but here we are. Anyways, it says the first time you would create one or more tokens during each of your turns, you may instead choose a creature other than Esix Fractal Bloom and create that many tokens that are copies of that creature. Yeah, that's pretty powerful. I mean, even if it didn't say one or more, if it was just the first time you create a token, it would still be very powerful. But basically, if you make a ton of tokens at once, you can say, hey, instead of these just coming in as 1/1 saplings, instead they're that giant thing over there. And also note that this doesn't say a creature you control. So it doesn't even have to be a powerful creature on your side of the board. It can be an opponent's most powerful creature. So you're just making a ton of copies of whatever the most powerful thing on the board is. But of course, with this kind of a deck, you're going to be running certain cards that are going to be perfect targets for this. And the first one that I'm going to highlight is a favorite of many Commander players. So let's talk about what cards you might want to include in this deck, including that one and more. And that card is, of course, Avenger of Zendikar. Avenger of Zendikar is a 5/5 elemental, and when it enters the battlefield, you create a 0/1 green plant creature token for each land you control. On top of that, it's got landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, you may put a +1/+1 counter on each plant you control. The potential that this card has with Esix is absolutely incredible. I mean, obviously you've got access to green with this deck, so you've got access to the best land ramp in Magic. But let's just even say that you're only at 7 lands when you cast this. When this comes into play, you make 7/0/1 plant creature tokens. But Esix says, wait, you know what, instead of those just being plant tokens, why not just make them copies of something else? How about, Avenger of Zendikar? Yeah, so the plants that Avenger of Zendikar creates become copies of Avenger of Zendikar. Please let me know in the comments below if any of my math is wrong on this, and it very well might be because I'm trying to do these episodes quickly and efficiently. So now you've got 7 more Avenger of Zendikars coming into play. And for each of those Avenger of Zendikars, you get 7 plant tokens. So now you've got 49 plant tokens in play and 8 Avenger of Zendikars in play. But this gets even more ridiculous. Now these plant tokens are just 0/1s, but that's going to change here in about a second. So we put down a forest. We've got 8 Avenger of Zendikars in play, so we get 8 landfall triggers. Now all of our plants are 8/9s. So just by casting Avenger of Zendikar and playing a land, we ended up with this. 8/5/5 Avenger of Zendikars and 49 8/9 plants. Just think about what would have happened if we had played an Evolving Wilds instead of a forest. So yeah, Esix is pretty broken. Now there are plenty of other cards that work really well with Esix, and I'm just going to highlight a few. So we've got some multi-token creators like Mirror Battlesphere, Hornet Queen, and Deep Forest Hermit. When Mirror Battlesphere comes into play, it makes 4/1/1 mirrors. And then when it attacks, you can tap X untap mirror you control. If you do, it gets plus X plus 0 until end of turn and deals X damage to the player or planeswalker it's attacking. So you put this in play, and instead of getting 4 mirror, you get 4 mirror battle spheres. So each of those come into play, and they bring 4 mirror with them. So you end up with 5 mirror battle spheres and 16 1/1 mirror. And when you can swing with one of them, then you can pump it and deal a ton of damage. Or how about Hornet Queen, a 2/2 flying death touch insect, and when it enters the battlefield, you create 4 1/1 green insect creature tokens with flying and death touch. So essentially the same thing, you end up with 5 Hornet Queens and 16 1/1 flying death touch insects. And then Deep Forest Hermit, a 1/1 with Vanishing 3, when it enters the battlefield, create 4 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens, and squirrels you control get +1/+1. So now you got 5 Deep Forest Hermits and 16 squirrels. And because you've got 5 of those hermits, each of those squirrels are 6 6s. Now, your Deep Forest Hermits do have Vanishing 3, but I'm sure you can finish out the game pretty quickly with that army. And again, when you're making these tokens, you can target whatever you want. So if, say, Avenger of Zendikar is in play, you can just make tokens of that. Though I'm not sure how you didn't already win the game if that was the case. Anyway, some more token creators that can make a massive amount of tokens in the right situation are Nakata Warpride and Master of Waves. Nakata Warpride is a 3/3 that must be blocked by exactly one creature if able. When it attacks, you put X tokens into play that are tapped and attacking that are copies of Nakata Warpride, where X is the number of creatures defending player controls. Remove the tokens for the game at end of turn. So yeah, let's just switch those out with something else. And then Master of Waves is a 2/1 Merfolk Wizard with protection from red that says elemental creatures you control get +1/+1, and when it enters the battlefield, create a number of 1/0 blue elemental creature tokens equal to your devotion of blue. So basically you make a massive amount of tokens, which become Master of Waves, which make even more tokens. And then all of your Master of Waves pump all your tokens and have fun from there. And of course, if you've already got a great target on the field, whether that's on your side or an opponent's, there are plenty of spells that can help you out as well. Skittering Invasion makes 5 tokens. Fungal Sprouting makes tokens equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. And Saproling Symbiosis essentially doubles up the number of creatures that you have by making a 1/1 Saproling for each creature you control. And speaking of doubling up your creatures, let's talk about Second Harvest and Parallel Evolution. Second Harvest says for each token you control, create a token that's a copy of that permanent. And then Parallel Evolution is very similar. It says for each creature token in play, its controller puts a creature token into play that's a copy of that creature. Now, obviously, with this deck, Parallel Evolution can help out your opponents, but it's gonna be helping you out more. And you can also flash it back for 7 mana, so have fun. But of course, with this commander, I have to mention some incredibly expensive cards, so here we go. Doubling Season, Parallel Lives, and Primal Vigor are good in this deck because they double up tokens. They're also incredibly expensive. Now, these cards are nowhere near necessary to make this commander incredibly powerful, but obviously if you've got one, you should probably use it. But outside of things that make tokens, let's talk about some other fantastic targets. How about we turn all of our tokens that are coming into play into, say, Diluvian Primordial? Because when Diluvian Primordial enters the battlefield, for each opponent you may cast up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from that player's graveyard without paying its mana cost. If a card cast this way be put into a graveyard this turn, exile it instead. So let's do some quick fun math. You have this in play and you've got something that makes 4 tokens. You have those tokens come into play as copies of this. Congratulations, now you're casting 12 spells from your opponent's graveyards. Or I should say 3 each, and obviously your opponents actually have to have those spells in their graveyard, but still, you know what I mean. Or how about everyone's favorite Agent of Treachery? When it enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent, and at the beginning of your end step, if you control 3 or more permanents you don't own, draw 3 cards. So make a bunch of copies of this, steal a bunch of things, and then draw a ton of cards. Just be careful that you don't mill yourself out with this one. Or how about one of my personal favorites, Tidespout Tyrant? It says whenever you cast a spell, return target permanent to its owner's hand. So yeah, let's say we make 4 copies of this. We have 5 of these in play now, and every single time we cast a spell, we bounce 5 things. That includes lands. Or say Avenger of Zendikar, which we can then just cast again next turn to get a lot more copies of it again. So yeah, this can get really out of hand. And of course, we can finish our opponents off with some big pump effects from something like Enray's Forerunners, or if you've got a lot of money to throw around, Crater Hoof Behemoth. You make token copies of these, and you pump your team by a ton, and you swing out, and your opponents are very, very, very dead. Or you can win in a different way with things like Timestream Navigator and Biovisionary. Timestream Navigator has Ascend and pay 2 blue, tap it, put it on the bottom of its owner's library, take an extra turn for this one, activate this ability only if you have the City's Blessing. So you get this in play, next turn you make some copies of it, you get the City's Blessing, and you activate it. It goes on the bottom of your library, you get an extra turn. Next turn you make more copies of one of them. You activate another one, and then you take an extra turn. As long as you keep getting ways to make more and more tokens of it, you've got infinite turns. And then there's Biovisionary, which is a lot more simple. It says at the beginning of the end step, if you control 4 or more creatures named Biovisionary, you win the game. So yeah, very simple, but effective. Now when it comes to Esix being in the 99, of course, commanders that create tokens can consider it. For example, Xyrus the Writhing Storm says, whenever an opponent draws a card except the first one they draw in each of their draw steps, create a 1/1 green snake creature token. And when it deals combat damage to a player, you and that player each draw that many cards. So yeah, you're going to be making quite a bit of tokens in this kind of a deck. Now obviously you can't just make copies of Xyrus, but you might have some other good targets. And maybe Najeela could use Esix? I don't know, Najeela really doesn't need any help. Najeela has when a warrior attacks, you may have its controller create a 1/1 white warrior creature token that's tapped and attacking, and you can pay Wooburg and basically get an extra combat with extra stuff. So again, not really sure if Najeela needs any help, she's already incredibly powerful. But now it's time for me to wrap things up and give you my final thoughts on this commander. We have seen a lot of powerful commanders in Strixhaven and in C21, and this one might just be the most powerful out of all of them. Even just playing a single card with it in play can completely turn a game around. And if you're planning on playing this commander, make sure you've got your dry erase markers ready, because you're going to be making a lot of copies of a lot of creatures, and things are going to get pretty out of control. And with Avenger of Zendikar especially, you're also going to need a ton of dice. And with that, the show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again, and have a good one.